So just the other day, I left a community post asking you guys to give me some questions about my playtime with Assassin's Creed Shadows, as well as just my opinion and stuff as well on stuff that we've learned about the game and all those sorts of things. And there are a bunch of really good questions that I'm going to be going through today. Now, before we do start, I want to also say I will most likely do a follow-up to this video as well, sort of within the few days before launch, about a week from now. So if you guys have any additional questions that you want me to answer, feel free to leave them in the comments of this video. And like I said, I'll try and get to as many of those as I can in a follow-up. And hell, if there's like 20 questions, I might even do multiple of those. So leave your questions down below. But with that being said, let's get stuck into today's questions. Now, the first one comes from YouTube Samurai, and he says, especially in comparison to Odyssey and Syndicate, what's the tone? Is it more dark and serious, how I prefer stories, or more lighthearted with serious moments like Odyssey and Syndicate? Now, I guess to answer this one, I've got to give a bit of context as to what I played, because obviously it's not like I've played the whole game or anything like that. In the playtime that I had in Sydney, it was about an hour of the prologue, maybe even a little bit less, maybe like 45 minutes of the prologue, where we kind of meet each of the characters. We then got about 4 hours of actual recorded game time, and probably 2 hours of that, maybe just a little bit less, was like one, not really a single mission, but it was like a single story arc within the game. And then once we finished that, we essentially just restarted, but we could just go out into the open world and do what we wanted. So I've probably played nearly 3 hours of the actual story related stuff. And also keep in mind, it was the prologue and then like a big time jump, and we just skipped maybe like halfway through the game at that point. So it's hard to say what the overall tone is when I haven't obviously played the entire game. From what I did experience though, it does seem a lot more serious. It's not like over the top serious where it's like taking itself just far too seriously and stuff. There were little bits of humor in there, almost just like icebreaker type stuff, but it wasn't like silly. It seemed very serious. The overall like stakes of the game seemed very, very serious. And yeah, I'd say when it comes to the overall tone, from what I experienced, it does seem a little bit more dark and serious compared to a more light-hearted game. So take that with a grain of salt. Like I said, I haven't played the entire game, so I don't know. But from what I did experience, it definitely seems more in line with that. Now, the next question comes from a Chicken Curry 101, who actually has 2 questions here. And he says, one, is the pace of the game very fast, like how you could play Odyssey with bandit camps and forts every other road, or is it more relaxed and peaceful? And then the second question is, how does the wanted system work, and what is the penalty for being wanted? Now, for the first question, again, it's kind of hard to say, because I don't know if maybe just the region we were in was like this, and then there's other regions that are a lot more chaotic. It did feel a lot more peaceful, if that makes sense, where you can just stroll through the Japanese countryside and just like kind of chill if you want. Now, there were still enemies patrolling roads. There are little camps and stuff. There are a lot of different castles, and there's a lot of different like shrines and stuff, where sometimes there would be people defending those areas and stuff. So there's still a lot of opportunities for combat, and just if you want to, you can get on your horse and you could probably get into combat every minute, essentially, if you want to do that. But it also did feel like there was a lot of exploration that seemed pretty casual, I guess you would say. You can just climb up a hill and get to an awesome viewpoint, and there might not be any enemies there. And so it seemed like a good mix. Again, that's just the one, we were only allowed in one region of the map. I think it was called Harima. And so maybe it's completely different everywhere else. What I'll also say is that different regions had different levels attached to them. So as you can see here, one of these was like level 35. At the time of playing, I think we were set to about level 25. And so that region is like 10 levels too high for me. Therefore, that region might have been crazy chaotic and stuff. I'm not too sure, but at least for the one that we played, it felt like it had the opportunity to be peaceful, but also if you wanted it to be chaotic, there was a lot of stuff to explore. It's not like it's an empty open world. It felt like if I wanted to get into combat, I could find someone, a big group of enemies or a fort or something within, I don't know, a minute of just jumping on the horse and heading in a direction. So I think hopefully, at least provided the rest of the map is done that same way, there should be that good balance for no matter how you want to play the game. As for the second question, that is, how does the wanted system work and what is the penalty for being wanted? It's actually really hard to say from my playtime, because it didn't feel like that was factored in too much. From what I experienced, the wanted system was only really when you're like, let's just say you've gone into a camp where it's a restricted area, you're not allowed to be in there. Let's just say you like kill an enemy in there and all the other enemies are alerted to you. If you escape that area, you kind of of stay wanted and they will actually continue to chase you. It's not like a lot of Assassin's Creed games where you would maybe leave a restricted area and obviously they would still kind of tail you a little bit, but then they just like give up. It seems as though they'll actually kind of chase you until you have broken their line of sight for long enough that they'll forget about you, but they'll still be kind of alert, if that makes sense. So it's hard to say because we didn't really get too much playtime with that wanted system, just based on, I guess, where the story was at that point. But realistically, it seemed pretty similar to wanted systems in most games where, yeah, if you do something wrong or if you kill an enemy or whatever the case may be, then you'll become wanted. There are also, similar to other Assassin's Creed games, like the reinforcements. So if you go into a camp, you kill some enemies, they can ring a bell to essentially call in reinforcements. And as far as I know, that also sort of plays into that wanted system as well. So yeah, seems pretty standard to what we've seen across many other games. From what I can tell when it comes to the penalty is that they seem to essentially just want to kill you. That seems like it's the penalty. I don't think there's any like monetary penalty like Red Dead Redemption or something like that. But yeah, again, take that with a grain of salt because we didn't really get too much playtime with that. Now, just quickly before we go any further, guys, I wanted to mention that channel memberships have been overhauled and brought back finally. And for less than the price of a single coffee once per month, you can gain access to a bunch of awesome benefits while also supporting me and my content here on YouTube. By becoming a member, you'll gain early access to pretty much all of the videos that I upload, often days before anyone else gets to see them. You'll get exclusive members only content such as my first hour series and even some behind the scenes content too. You can even vote on upcoming content to have your say in what you want to see next on the channel. And you'll even get access to a permanent 15% off code for all merch in the store, private access to our Discord server, as well as loyalty badges next to your name in the comment section and in live chats as well. If you're looking to support the channel and all of that sounds enticing to you, then please do consider hitting that join button. But with that being said, let's get stuck back into the video. Now, the next question comes from Button Masher Gamer, who says, is there iframe when dodging and doing special moves? Now, for those who don't know what iframe means, it essentially stands for invincible frame. It is essentially in most games where when you dodge, for example, or there's just certain other mechanics that will allow this, but it's usually to do with dodging. When you press the dodge button, you'll get a few frames there where you are essentially invincible. So even if something actually, let's just say someone's attacking you with a sword and you dodge, and on your screen, it might look as though that sword has still hit you, but you didn't take any damage. That is what iframe essentially is. It's just kind of a way to make the game not so much easier, but it's almost like rewarding you for pressing buttons at the right time. So if you dodge at the right time, you don't deserve to be hit, and that is essentially what an iframe is. So from my experience in this game, it did feel like there was an iframe. There were a few times even where I was like using one of the abilities, like he says with the special moves. You do have a couple of abilities you can use, and it seemed as though as I activated that ability, there was even a few times I remember, keep in mind this is nearly 2 months ago now, so I could be wrong on this, but this is definitely something I remember. There were times when I would activate an ability and I'd pretty much, as I'd press that, think, oh shit, like I've left myself open, I'm gonna get hit here. But that never happened, and so that makes me also think that with the abilities, there seems to be an iframe there as well, that pretty much as soon as you've activated that ability, you just get that little like split-second window where even if an enemy had been winding up and they're about to hit you, if you activate it at the right time, you'll pretty much just avoid taking that damage. And yeah, much the same with the dodging as well. It's almost the same thing as like a parry system where if you dodge at the perfect time, it's like a perfect dodge and the enemy will kind of be slowed down a bit and you get almost a counter from your dodge as well. So it seems like there was definitely an iframe. Again, take that with a grain of salt because it's been like 2 months now and it's hard to tell from watching my own footage because I'm not pressing the buttons to know when I press the buttons in that footage. But from what I remember, it definitely felt like there was iframe. Now, the next question comes from Jake and he says, how will the present day story take place if there even is a present day story? This is a good question, and this is something that I can't confirm if I'm actually correct about this. I am pretty confident I'm correct, but I could be wrong. So take it with a grain of salt. From what I know, the Assassin's Creed franchise moving forward essentially will not have a modern day story like it used to with Desmond and stuff back in the older games, and obviously a lot of even the more recent games have had some element of that, even though it's a lot less than what it used to be in the old games. From what I know, Assassin's Creed Shadows and seemingly all of them moving forward, from I think it was an interview back in like 2022 or 2023, pretty much confirming that there won't be a present day story anymore. So some people are going to be happy about that. For me personally, I don't love that. I actually used to really like the modern day story. It kind of gave the actual games a bit more depth, in my opinion, that there was two storylines going on at the same time. And I really loved the Desmond storyline back in the day and stuff. So personally, I don't love that. I think if the game's done well enough, it shouldn't matter too much. But yeah, I would prefer if it all still linked together and it all had that modern day story involved. But unfortunately, it seems like that is not going to be the case. Again, take that with a grain of salt. I'm pretty confident I remember reading that, and there was nothing that I saw in this game that had anything to do with a modern day story. We know that there's still like the Animus hub and stuff, so they've still implemented the Animus into the game. Therefore, that's the only thing that makes me go, okay, is there some sort of modern day storyline? But from what I know, it doesn't seem like there is a modern day story in Assassin's Creed Shadows. The next question comes from Banana Sean, and he says, can you fortify the base and can it get attacked randomly? I like the customized options, but want to know if I should build for strategic intent or just whatever I feel like. That is a really good question. Unfortunately, it's a sort of a hard one to answer because in our playtime, we did not get anything to do with that hideout system, as it's called. From what I know, apparently just after the prologue you unlock that, and like I said, we sort of got the prologue and then we just had a time jump and we didn't get to touch that at all. The only element that I saw was that you can go around the world and kind of collect like resources for your hideout. So you'll find like piles of logs or piles of stone, for example, that you can actually just go up to and like press the collect button essentially, and it will automatically transfer to your hideout, which you can then use to obviously add more buildings and stuff like that. So that's really all I experienced. I have looked into it a little bit though for just like the purpose of making content. It does seem as though you can get attacked randomly. I don't know if it is just randomly or if it's part of the story, but they have mentioned in some of their like blog posts and stuff, even as recently as this week actually, that there will be times you have to defend the hideout. So I don't really know if that means we need to build it for strategic intent, as in like if you put up walls and put up some sort of defensive system, or if when they say defending it, that just literally means we need to play as Yasuke or Nawe and just literally kill people that are attacking it. I'm not too sure. So unfortunately, it's a pretty shit answer from me. What I will say is that as soon as we get actual confirmation of that, most likely once the game actually launches, I will 100% be doing a lot of videos in the hideout system because it looks really, really cool to me. And so yeah, you can expect to see more like confirmation of that stuff in the future. But as of right now, the only answer I know is that yeah, we will at times have to defend the hideout, but whether that is just a couple of times in the story or whether it can be completely random, I'm unfortunately not too sure about that. Now, the final question that we have for today's video is from Santini, and they say, do you think this game will be a success or a flop? And that is a very, very hard question to answer. I guess I'd start by saying I'm pretty confident it won't be a flop. And by flop, I mean like terrible sales numbers, Ubisoft losing money over this and it just being an absolute like L of a game. It's get like a 70 on Metacritic and stuff. I don't think it'll be that bad of a game at all. I think the minimum that I'm sort of expecting for this game is that it's still going to sell really well and that it'll be maybe at worst an 80 on Metacritic or something like that. So essentially an 8 out of 10. When you look at all of the recent Assassin's Creed games, they all generally review around, yeah, low 80s to like an 85 roughly. So that's sort of what I'm expecting for this game. What I will say is it feels better than the modern Assassin's Creed games. It does feel like a quality step up. So it might even be better than that. And that's where I'm not too sure if it will be a big success or if it will just be like a standard Assassin's Creed game. But I'm definitely very confident it won't be a flop. I think I'd be shocked if this game just like did really poorly and Ubisoft like lost money on it and stuff. That's what I would consider a flop, and I'll be absolutely shocked if that happens, just because Assassin's Creed always sells well. It's a huge franchise. I know that it's been a little bit down in the dumps in terms of reputation and stuff like that, as well as Ubisoft being much the same over the last few years. But even with that, for example, Valhalla, that is literally their highest selling Assassin's Creed game. It sold, I think, 26 million copies or something like that, which is almost double what the next Assassin's Creed game has sold. So their most recent, not including Mirage, because that's obviously a bit of a spin-off, the most recent mainline game is their most successful. So if that sold 26 million copies within the first, say, like year or something, I'd be shocked if this sells less than like 15 million copies. And that's a very successful game at the end of the day. Whether it's a success from a review standpoint, I have no idea. It's always hard to tell with Ubisoft games. I'm a big fan of Assassin's Creed, so they generally are received well by me. I generally like all of them. But that being said, I definitely don't like the more recent ones as much as I liked the originals and stuff. So definitely a hard question to answer. I think, yeah, the only safe answer I can say is that I'll be shocked if it's a flop. I don't know if it'll be a huge success. I'd be shocked if it's like in Game of the Year territory and stuff like that. I don't think it'll be that successful, but that's mostly because this year is absolutely stacked as well. So it'll definitely be interesting to watch, but yeah, I'll be pretty shocked if this game is a genuine flop anyway. But that is it for today's video, boys and girls. Like I said, if you have any more questions that didn't get answered in this video, be sure to leave them down below. Like I said, even if there's like 20 or 30 questions, I'll actually just do multiple of these videos because I really enjoy answering these sort of questions. So if you do have anything you want to know about the game based on my playtime, or even, like I said, just my opinion on stuff or whatever, be sure to leave those down in the comment section. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.